VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
And thank you for joining us on Crosstalk here on the VCY America Network. Friends, we're living in troublesome times as we're seeing what's taking place across this nation and around the world. And today we're going to be focusing, we're still seeking to connect with our guest here today, dealing with criminal aliens that are being apprehended in the United States of America. It is absolutely astounding to see what we are seeing unfold here across this nation. As there are raids that are going into different cities, even businesses, we are seeing sanctuary cities that are harboring those who are here illegally, some with horrendous backgrounds as it relates to crime and violence, whether it be that of sexual trafficking or other issues. A story just came out from BizPac Review this week on immigration agents arrested an illegal migrant accused of storing an Illinois woman's corpse on his property months after she died from a drug overdose. This is Immigration and Customs Enforcement took custody of an individual, 52-year-old Mexican national living unlawfully in the U.S. They issued a press release that he was charged in April with concealing the dead body in a storage container on his yard for roughly 2 months and abusing the corpse and obstruction of justice. But every day, according to the DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin, she said this in a public statement. She said, every day, ICE is arresting sickos like criminal illegal aliens. That depraved alien was charged with concealing the body of a missing woman in a storage container for months and abusing her corpse. Well, ladies and gentlemen, virtually daily, I am receiving an email from the Department of Homeland Security detailing the arrests being made by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. They're targeting dangerous criminal illegal aliens and taking them off the streets of America. Today, they indicate that they have arrested several. ICE North Carolina arrested a 42-year-old illegal alien from Mexico. His criminal history includes a conviction for first-degree rape and first-degree sex offense of a child in Wake County, North Carolina. ICE North Carolina also arrested a 42-year-old illegal alien from El Salvador. His criminal history includes a conviction for indecent liberties with a child in Lexington, North Carolina. ICE of Utah arrested a 50-year-old illegal alien from El Salvador convicted of RICO, drug trafficking, and robbery in Las Vegas. ICE of Dallas arrested a 22-year-old illegal alien from Mexico. His criminal history included a conviction for aggravated meth trafficking in Canadian County, Oklahoma. And one more here, ICE San Francisco arrested a 46-year-old illegal alien from the Federated States of Micronesia. His criminal history included convictions for aggravated assault that took place in Guam. Indeed, day after day, these arrests are being made, and yet despite these agents protecting our homeland, according to DHS, ICE law enforcement officers are facing an 830% increase in assaults against them. Additionally, there are mayors and governors actively opposing the actions of ICE agents, including the calling of them to leave their area. This is prioritizing those who are here illegally versus the safety and security of U.S. citizens. Well, joining us today on these and related issues, we welcome back Mark Krikorian. He is a nationally recognized expert on immigration and issues. He serves as executive director for the Center for Immigration Studies. They're an independent, non-partisan research organization examining and critiquing the impact of immigration on the United States. He has testified numerous times before Congress and has published many articles and spoken on many outlets. Mark, welcome back here to Crosstalk.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Mark, can we say that the spigot is officially shut off for those trying to enter the U.S. illegally? I mean, what a night and day difference from where we were just 1 year ago.
Oh, absolutely. It's night and day difference. Now, it's never going to be shut off in the sense that, look, there's still people steal cars, there's still shoplifting. I mean, violation of the law is never going away, but night and day is the way to put it. I mean, the border is seeing the least illegal traffic maybe ever recorded, ever. And so definitely that avenue into the U.S., while it still exists, it's not nearly what it used to be. There's going to be visa overstayers. That often happens. That's the other part of illegal immigration, people who fly in with a visa and then just never leave. But the bottom line is, yeah, absolutely, the new illegal immigration has dramatically been reduced, and the administration is working on trying to unwind the illegal immigration we've seen over the past many years.
We're going to get in a number of issues today, but Mark, we saw a very narrow passage of what was called the One Big Beautiful Bill. How is border security and illegal immigration impacted by the legislation that was passed?
The bill is a funding bill, so it doesn't change policy. That's why they were able to pass it with only 51 votes in the Senate. The way it affects immigration is through a dramatic increase in resources, in money, for immigration enforcement. And some of the parts of it won't be apparent right away, like hiring extra Border Patrol agents and ICE agents is the kind of thing that takes time, because you've got to recruit people, you have to check them out, you got to train them. What you're going to see the immediate impact of is in detention, because detaining illegal immigrants until you can remove them is essential. There's no point to arresting a lot of illegal aliens if you're going to end up having to let them go because you got to know where to hold them.
Right.
And even under the best of circumstances, it's going to take a week or two, to get the paperwork for their home country, to send them out, all that kind of stuff. So that's the bottleneck we've been facing. The previous administration reduced detention dramatically, and so this administration is increasing it, and that's what you're going to see. The sort of first effects of the Big Beautiful Bill, and they're going to be able to both arrest and deport more people now that they have somewhere to kind of park people that they have arrested until they can put the paperwork in order and get their flights lined up and all that.
So, I mean, you're totally aware that a lot of legacy media coverage on the conditions in these detention centers, where we're told they're deplorable, that detainees are not getting adequate food or inadequate medical care, that health conditions are atrocious. Comment on that, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt that sometimes, there's stuff like that happens. But generally speaking, and I've been to a number of ICE detention centers, and they didn't put on a show for me. I was just there. They've got dental care. They've got schools. Teachers from the local schools. If it's one that holds families. I don't doubt that in overcrowded centers there are problems sometimes, but that's in a sense kind of one of the things that the new bill is designed to address. Is with more money, you can have more detention space, and you don't end up with the kind of overcrowding that probably sometimes does cause some problems.
There's been a lot of concern about the newly opened Alligator Alcatraz, as called. But I understand, though, it's been said, individuals don't have to stay here. They can self-deport if they want to.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's two ways not to be in detention. One is, if you're an illegal immigrant, just pack up and go home before ICE finds you. But the other thing is that criminals accepted, obviously, but regular illegal immigrants, if you're being held only for immigration violations, the only reason you're in detention is because you're fighting your removal in court. If you just said, okay, I don't want to be in detention, I drop my challenge to deportation, please send me home, guess what? You get on the plane and you get sent home. So in a sense, most illegal immigrants in detention have the key to their own cells, if you will, figuratively speaking, because if they didn't challenge their removal, they wouldn't be in detention for longer than a few more days.
So, they don't pay for that return. I mean, isn't the U.S. taxpayer paying for that, along with the stipend for them to go?
Absolutely, yeah. We are paying for the removal, obviously, whether there's a stipend or not. The stipend thing is something DHS came up with for people to use this, what used to be called the CBP-1 app, which the Biden administration used to help illegal immigrants schedule their illegal immigration to the United States. I mean, it sounds crazy, but that's what they were doing. This administration changed it. It's called the CBP Home app, in other words, to go home. And if you use that and go home on your own, you will you get basically a bonus once you get home of $1,000. And I'm not sure how many people. I mean, there's several thousand people have taken them up on it. I'm not sure what the total number is, but it's a way to, get yourself right with the law, but on your own terms in a more dignified fashion. Nobody's arresting you. You just pack up the kids and go back.
We're talking today with Mark Krikorian, who is with the Center for Immigration Studies. He's the executive director there. Their website, CIS.org. And, Mark, we've seen some significant actions that have been taken and are being taken by the border czar, Tom Homan, and Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. Do you have any indication as to the number of arrests or apprehensions that they've made to this point, or how many they've actually deported?
The number of removals is interior removals. I don't have the numbers at hand, but the numbers are higher than prior administrations. The claims that some people make that, Obama deported more people or what have you, those are based on counting border arrests along with interior removals. But there's nobody coming across the border now. So that inevitably the number of border arrests is low, but the deportations from inside the country are significantly up. Now, it's not where the administration wants them. People figure, okay, you just turn a switch on and you can start, moving tens of thousands of people out every day. It doesn't work that way. And you're seeing the court challenges and all the rest of it. But they're moving in the right direction, and especially with the extra money from the big, beautiful bill, you're going to see significant increases. This year, you may see 300,000 removals, deportations, and that sounds like a drop in the bucket, but that's pretty high historically, and I could see them getting it significantly higher. They're shooting for 1 million a year. They're not going to get it this year, but they might get to that next year. It's not impossible.
Well, they were been challenged in the court so many times, delaying the actions through this process. Yep. But any what numbers? You talk about that being a drop in the bucket. What is their best guesstimate as to how many illegal aliens are in the country right now?
Our estimate for the illegal population is probably about 16 million. Other people come up with much bigger numbers. It could be 17 million. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that that's a hard number, but sure. It's not 25, 30 million people. That's just those. And, 16 million is plenty. I mean, how many illegal aliens do you want? It's going to be hard enough to get rid of them. Some people don't realize is that the reason the illegal population isn't like way bigger than it would be is because every year, even under Obama and even under Biden, there were still illegal immigrants going home for their own reasons. There's always churn. Some of them actually finagle green cards, so they're not illegal aliens anymore. So that the goal of the administration is to deport a whole lot of people, but also persuade even more people to leave on their own.
We're talking today with Mark Krikorian from the Center for Immigration Studies. A quick break, and friends, we've got so much more information to come in our next segment, so stay with us. We'll be back in 1 minute here on Crosstalk, coming your way from the VCY America Network.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, scientist with the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, over the years, we've read a lot from science about amber. Has DNA ever been recovered from it?
Chris, there are fragments of DNA found in amber, but it's well known that DNA decomposes in such a short period of time that even in thousands of years, you'd not expect to find much DNA left. But now an even more remarkable thing has been found that has thrown evolution into a tizzy. Entombed within the bodies of insects fossilized in amber are ancient bacteria, which scientists have been able to revive. They've actually come back to life. Over 3,500 types of microorganisms have been rejuvenated. Chris, how can this be? This amber is thought to be millions and millions of years old, but how could things still be alive after all that time? Chris, I think it's the evolutionary story and the story of millions of years which is wrong. The Back to Genesis view makes a whole lot more sense.
Thanks for tuning in to Back to Genesis.
You're listening to Crosstalk on the VCY American Network. Our guest today, Mark Krikorian, Executive Director of Center for Immigration Studies, their website, CIS.org. And as we've said before, friends, if you want to know what's going on the immigration front, check out CIS.org. Daily, I'm using regular columns that are coming forth in news regarding immigration, border security, etc. Hey, on that big, beautiful bill, Mark, wasn't there not additional funding also for the increasing the border fence?
Yes, there was for building more border fence, and they're doing it now. I mean, that they actually have. That's another thing that they can do quickly because the contractors are there. In many cases, the actual wall units are sitting on the ground for 4 years because Biden told them to stop working, even though they had all of this stuff sitting around. So they've been able to restart work on the wall pretty quickly. So, and there's plenty of pictures of new wall going up. It's going up outside El Paso and a bunch of other places. Any
idea how many miles of wall need to be constructed?
Yeah, I don't know what the total is, and I wouldn't even pick a magic number because the flow changes all the time. I mean, there are some places you can't really build wall at all. Places like Big Bend in Texas. Number one, it's super remote, and there's cliffs and things. I mean, it's just not practical. But most other places, they're going to end up over the years having to build a wall just because, the smugglers just always look for a new route, a new way to get in that doesn't have wall.
Daily, I'm receiving detailed listings from Department of Homeland Security of those that are being apprehended. We're talking about murderers, rapists, child sex offenders, drug dealers, and the list goes on. And Mark, this is why I'm so baffled, and I truly believe our nation should be baffled, greatly concerned by the actions that are being taken by public officials. I mean, it's hard to know where to begin, but let's begin by mentioning the mayor of Nashville, Mayor Freddie O'Connell, who, according to Kristi Noem, has openly doxed ICE agents and says what the mayor is doing to the city is shameful. Let's first comment on Nashville, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, it's happening in a lot of different places. The idea of doxing, federal law enforcement agents. In other words, the point of it is not, okay, I want to know who they are. The point of it is they want Antifa to know who they are. They want people to be able to intimidate them and to intimidate their family members. And I don't know if it's illegal, but it should be.
Yeah. I mean, looking, we've got the same coming from Mayor Bass in Los Angeles, Governor Newsom over in California, who, I mean, they're openly opposing the work of ICE.
Yeah, I mean, this is nullification is what this is. That's what they called it, leading up to the Civil War, is that they're simply rejecting federal law. They don't want to enforce it, and they're standing in the way. Now, California doesn't have to help ICE because each states they're equal sovereigns to the federal government. And so there are things that the federal government can't make them do, but they are not permitted to interfere in the enforcement of federal law. And that's why some of these politicians are skating pretty close to committing crimes by trying to stop ICE rather than just standing back and not helping them.
And, we see what's going on in California has been atrocious. And at the same time, we're hearing rumblings of Governor Newsom having presidential aspirations. I know you're nonpartisan. We take that same position, being nonpartisan. But isn't he sending a clear signal that he would open wide the borders, just like we saw under the Biden administration if he were elected?
Well, he's sure not sending the opposite message. In other words, it seems to me that after the experience of the Biden administration, any Democrat running for office would have to differentiate himself. In other words, say, look, I'm still for all of this stuff with Medicaid or whatever it is, other policy areas. But here's how I'm different from the what the Biden administration did, which I think was really a big mistake.
Yeah.
Well, they're not doing that. They're just saying that they're, in effect, saying that what Biden did at the border was good and that you're going to get more of it if you vote for me. It's an odd political message, but I don't know. We'll have to see whether people go for that or not.
Let's go from California to New York City. A tragic story just broke days ago. Off-duty U.S. Customs and Border protection officer shot in the face after being robbed by an illegal alien riding on a moped. Unfold for us what happened there, if you would.
Well, what happened there is they wasn't targeting this DHS employee who was off duty. That was just kind of bad luck on the part of these illegal aliens. There were two Dominican illegal immigrants who had been led into the country by the Biden administration. So these people weren't, 10, 20-year residents of New York. They were illegals that the Biden people had let in. They had multiple interactions with the police in New York. It's a sanctuary city, so they weren't handed over to ICE when the city was done with them, whatever they were going to do with them. And they're back on the street committing crimes. So this was both sanctuary city and Biden border policies combined created this, the conditions for this crime.
Yeah, and that's what Secretary Noem just did by blaming sanctuary policies for really playing a role in this attack itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, if an illegal immigrant doesn't have any interaction with the authorities, they sneak past the Border Patrol, they lie low, nobody knows about them, and then they commit a crime, okay, well, the government should have stopped the illegal immigration, but they don't have a big degree of responsibility. The government doesn't. Mm-hmm. But when you know who the person is and let him into the community instead of removing him, then it is the government's fault, both the New York City government and the federal government's fault for this crime. I mean, it's their responsibility as well as obviously the criminals themselves.
And speaking of New York City, again, a sanctuary city, we had DHS just announced, I believe it was today, that they've issued 6,025 arrest requests to transfer custody or detainers since January of this year, January 20th. That is 6,000 in just the first 6 months of the Trump presidency, and that compares to 9,472 detainers over the full 4 years of President Biden. And they're reporting today this is a 400% spike, and yet, Mark, we have public officials ignoring these detainer requests.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so for your listeners, what a detainer request or a detainer notification means is that when somebody's arrested for a local crime, their fingerprints are taken. Those fingerprints go to the FBI. Everybody knows about that from TV shows. But they also go to DHS. And most illegal immigrants, DHS knows something about. Maybe they were deported before or whatever it is. And so what a detainer notification is ICE says, hey, please let us know when you're done with this guy. If you're going to prosecute him, go ahead, do whatever it is you're going to do. But before you let him go, let us know so we can go and get him and remove him from the country. And sanctuary cities, this is the core of what it means to be a sanctuary city, is they say no, even though we now all know this guy's an illegal alien who's deportable, we're not going to tell ICE and we're going to release him onto the street. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. And we're watching with interest this election for New York City mayor right now, and Zoran Mamdani won the Democratic primary. And we've got listeners in New York as well. And again, being nonpartisan, but showcase what New York City would look like under his administration if he's voted in as it relates to this issue of illegal immigration.
Well, I mean, he's going to be totally committed to being a sanctuary city. I'm not sure how much worse it could get. I mean, maybe it could. I don't know, because Eric Adams at least has permitted like some really, really bad criminals to be handed over to ICE in a few instances. So maybe that wouldn't happen. It would be pretty bad, but, it's already pretty bad. I'm not sure that whether Cuomo or this Mamdani guy or somebody else is elected, I'm not sure how much is going to change in New York. They fundamentally have to change city policy, and that's going to take more than just a new governor. They're going to have to change their city council is going to have to change the way they do things. In the meantime, they're just going to keep releasing criminals back into immigrant neighborhoods.
Amazing. Because
those are the people that they're preying on. It's mostly immigrants.
Yeah. So Tom Homan just indicated that they're going to be targeting sanctuary cities and sanctuary states, that they were going to flood the zone, those words used, to find criminals in sanctuary jurisdictions. He really is not tolerant of those who are harboring criminals, is he?
No, he's not Tom is a lifelong law enforcement officer, was a police officer in upstate New York, was a Border Patrol agent, been a long-time ICE agent. So he is, he's a cop. He's a regular cop, and it's like he, in some sense, almost can't believe his eyes about what's happening. Because I told him several years ago, I said, if you guys get in and actually, start enforcing the law, you're going to see real pushback. You're going to see people surrounding detention centers and throwing themselves in front of cars and all this. I don't think he believed me. And because he's sort of a straightforward guy. It's like, well, how can they be against enforcing the law against criminals? But unfortunately, in the immigration business, there's a whole lot of people who do not want even criminals to be deported.
Yeah.
Now, they're okay with them being locked up if they've committed a crime and they've sentenced. But when they're done, even if they're illegal aliens, their sense is, if they want to stay, they should be allowed to stay here.
This includes congressmen.
Yep, absolutely does. A lot of congressmen. I mean, it's the sort of usual suspects, obviously, but it's kind of, at this point, a mainstream Democratic Party position to be against the deportation of anybody who isn't a convicted violent criminal. And then there's a smaller number of Democrats who don't even want convicted violent criminals to be deported.
Yeah. We saw, what was it, Pam Bondi, Attorney General, just announced a major change as Louisville is dropping its sanctuary city policies. That's really a direct result of a written warning from her office, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's more of that can be done. I mean, the feds there's a limit to what they can make sanctuary cities do and what kind of pressure they can bring, but there is pressure they can bring on them. And this is something I think a lot of people don't think about. The immigration issue obviously is a national issue, but at the state level, there are a lot of states that are either run by Republicans or they're kind of purple states. In other words, they're not crazy sort of lefty states like some of them that have sanctuary jurisdictions within them, cities and counties.
Right.
The difference is that while Washington can't make California not be a sanctuary because California is a state and the federal government didn't create the states. In fact, the states created the federal government. But at the state level, every city and county is created by the state legislature. So if the state legislature of Kentucky or Texas or any other state wants to say no jurisdiction in our state is allowed to be a sanctuary city, they can do that. And that's what you need to see, I think, in more states, is cracking down. Some states have done it, obviously, but that needs to be something that people could do at the local level, is get their state governments to ban sanctuary cities so that if you were, for instance, and this is just one example, I have no idea if anybody's doing this, but if in Wisconsin, I'm sure Madison is a sanctuary city. I haven't looked it up, but I can pretty much guarantee it. But the state legislature could say you're not allowed to be a sanctuary city, period. And if you don't get in line, we're going to dissolve your city. I mean, they can do anything they want because the city is a creation of the state legislature.
Friends, you're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America. With us today is Mark Krikorian from the Center for Immigration Studies. Their website is CIS.org. And one of their colleagues just testified before Congress on criminal aliens in the United States. We'll get into that after the break. You're listening to Crosstalk here on VCY.
For over 200 years, the American judicial system has upheld a standard so strong that a person's very life can be ended based on this level of confidence. A verdict supported by evidence that is beyond a reasonable doubt. Did you know there is evidence demonstrated beyond a reasonable doubt that we have a creator? Most are unaware of it because it has been censored from textbooks. Now, you can have this information at your fingertips. In the beautifully illustrated hardcover book, Have You Considered? Evidence Beyond a Reasonable Doubt, Bruce Malone and Julie Von Vett provide a series of unique devotions presenting evidence for every day of the year that points to the Creator. It's written in an easy-to-read format so that young and old can learn. Have You Considered is available for a donation of $18 or more from VCY. Call 1-800-729-9829.
listening to Crosstalk on VCY America. With us today is Mark Krikorian, Executive Director of the Center for Immigration Studies. Again, their site is CIS.org. Just before I pick up with my questions, Mark, just give us a word about your organization, if you would.
We're a think tank in Washington, D.C., relatively small, but we're the only research organization that is on the pro-control, lower immigration numbers side of the debate. There's some advocacy groups, but we're the only one that does research. And like you said before the break, one of our people testified yesterday, and we testified actually 7 times this Congress, so since January, almost once a month.
Wow.
And so that's what we do, along with things like this, public education, new reports we publish all the time. We have one out today on our website. And if people have a taste for snark and sarcasm, I'm on Twitter at Mark S. as in Stephen, Mark S. Krikorian.
Okay. And let me ask you this about that testimony. Andrew Arthur, he was with us just a month or so ago here on the program. He just testified before Congress on criminal aliens in the U.S. And Mark, it's been so troubling to see the blind eye that has been turned in, by the previous administration and even to some of the current mayors and governors to this criminal element freely allowed access, into our cities and states and allowed access across our borders to begin with.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that the anti-enforcement people often react by saying, no, when you talk about immigrant criminals like this, they're saying, yeah, but immigrants aren't more likely to be criminals than the native born. Okay, well, maybe not. The data on that is actually unclear, but it doesn't matter because the one thing we know is every immigrant criminal is a criminal. Mm-hmm. And if they're an illegal alien, they shouldn't be here. Every crime committed by an illegal immigrant is an avoidable crime, one that should not have happened. And it's that distinction that is hard to get through to people who are on the other side of the debate, or they just don't want to acknowledge it. And what it ends up doing is in a sense, almost painting all immigrants as criminals because they're opposing the deportation of criminal immigrants. If they said, look, we want criminals to be deported and we're going to work with ICE hand in glove to make sure criminals are deported, but we don't want other regular illegal aliens deported. Okay, well, I don't agree with that, but at least that would be a position. But what they're saying is we don't want regular illegal aliens to be deported, and therefore we're not even going to help you deport the criminals. It's just unconscionable.
Friends, we're opening our phone lines to Crosstalk. If you have a question you'd like to ask of Mark Krikorian of the Center for Immigration Studies on the matter of illegal immigration or legal immigration as far as that goes, our phone line is open today, 800-733-9829. Your question or brief comment, 800-733-9829. Mark, let's talk about the children. I know under the Biden administration, DHS officials lost track of estimates of like 300,000 unaccompanied migrant children. There are experts who say many of these kids, with the help of NGOs, went to largely unvetted sponsors, many of which were linked to Mexican drug cartels, sex, and forced labor trafficking. Comment on this matter of missing children and what's going on.
Well, that 300,000 plus number of missing children isn't really an estimate. It's an actual number. It's just that missing means that the Department of Health and Human Services, which is supposed to be, responsible for their welfare, called up the sponsors that they handed them over to, and nobody called back. Nobody answered the phone. So they have no idea. Most of those kids probably are just with their parents or their relatives, but thousands of them are not. And, the Biden administration prioritized getting these unaccompanied minors, illegal immigrant teenagers mostly, out of their sort of shelter facilities they had and into somebody's home as quickly as possible. And if a few of those people were handed over to bad guys, they figured, well, whatever, that's the price we're going to pay. Completely irresponsible.
Yeah.
It is easier to adopt a dog at the pound. I mean, it's harder to adopt a dog at the pound than it was under Biden. to claim to be a sponsor for an illegal immigrant kid. And of course that's led to widespread abuses. How could it not?
And let's talk about the recent raids of the cannabis or the marijuana fields. A number of minors were found there. Tell us about those raids.
Yeah, there was raids in California on 2 marijuana farms, which is kind of, it's ridiculous we even have such things.
Right.
But and it turned out there were a whole bunch of minors, underage people working there. One of them, I think they arrested, they found a whole bunch of people, but they found something like 10 or 11 underage workers, 8 of whom were the unaccompanied minors that have this special status if they come in without their parents. It's not clear, were they, being forced to do this work? Were they just, 16-year-olds or 15-year-olds, where in Central America that's working age, frankly, and so they were just doing regular work that was still illegal. We don't know what story is there, but we wouldn't ever have known about it if ICE or Border Patrol hadn't raided this farm. They need to do a lot more of this, not just farms, but a lot of other places. Because, and this is something even the New York Times has written about, there are all kinds of unaccompanied minors working in jobs. They're underage. They're, 12, 13, 14-year-olds working in factories, working around dangerous equipment, working graveyard shifts, cleaning factories, this sort of thing. Like I said, the New York Times did several stories on this. The way you deal with it is you enforce the law and find out what's going on. And when you find even regular illegal aliens, you're going to be deporting them too. But without doing that, you're not going to know about outrages like this.
Friends, our lines are packed, and as soon as you hear somebody hang up, that's your opportunity to call. Let's go right to the lines. Nick in Muskego, Wisconsin, you're on the air.
Yes. I was wondering if one of these illegals commit a crime against a normal citizen here, can we not sue them?
Well, you can sue the illegal alien, but he doesn't have any money. What you want to be able to do, and this is not something that is possible now, is you want to be able to sue the government agency that released the person, for instance, and they knew it was illegal, but they let him go anyway. That kind of thing. That would actually make a difference. That's not something you're able to do now. There's not what they call standing to do that. In other words, there isn't a basis for a lawsuit. Congress can create what they call a cause of action. They can create a basis for a lawsuit. And at the state level, maybe the state legislatures could probably do it too, but it hasn't happened yet. So no, you can't sue, I'm afraid.
Thank you, Nick. Let's go next to Kathy calling from Jerome, Idaho. Kathy, you're on the air.
Yes, thank you. I have a couple questions. I missed the first part of the program, so I'm not sure what you covered, but we're a highly agriculture, specifically dairy industry in our area, and even our state association, the State Dairymen's Association, has pushed and pushed and pushed for acceptance of illegal aliens, if you will, to remain on the farms. And, if you have something, a different opinion as to that, then you're really in bad sorts with them. So why cannot Congress offer something for these agriculture associations that need year-round full-time workers instead of the seasonal? This is where the hang-up is.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
This is something that's coming up in Congress because there is a seasonal farm worker program that has no limits. It's just a lot of farmers don't use it because it has requirements about pay and transportation and housing that many farmers don't want to deal with. They prefer to have illegal aliens. But dairy is one of those issues where there's a year-round issue. It's not a seasonal business. But, my answer to that is Europe, they don't import foreign workers to run their dairy industry. They've mechanized it. You still have people working there, but you don't need nearly as much labor. And what the easy availability of foreign workers does, whether they're on a work visa or whether they're illegal aliens, is it slows the process of productivity improvement and mechanization and labor saving. Because why spend money on labor saving if you don't need to do labor saving because you've got people you're importing from, Guatemala to work in your dairy? I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not telling people this is, something that's, no big deal and you should be able to figure it out. But it's not Congress's job to procure workers for dairy farms. And it's in the long run harmful because it perpetuates old-fashioned labor-intensive ways of doing business instead of incentivizing productivity increases and mechanization. And they've got a lot of that, automated milking equipment, that sort of thing. It's all developed in Europe because they don't have, Mexicans coming to work on the dairy farm.
Well, I'm just surprised, too, that they encourage the general public to accept the idea of law-breaking when it comes to illegal immigration.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, they do. And one last point on that, it's not just law-breaking they want the public to accept. They also want the public to make up for the low salaries they're paying through welfare, food stamps, all of that sort of thing. They're essentially passing much of the cost of their laborers onto the taxpayer instead of paying people what they need to live, which may mean that milk will cost 10 cents more a gallon, but you're paying for it one way or the other.
Kathy, thank you for the call. We've got several lined up here from Idaho. Let's go to Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa. Jeff, you're on the air.
Hi, I've been both a Republican and Democrat. Now I'm an independent. But here's my thoughts on this whole situation. Don't you think Republicans are just as culpable in creating this problem? Because when I go back and look at it, how did Reagan deal with it? He granted immunity to millions of illegals. Can you imagine if Biden or Obama did that? And then when Clinton was president, we had a young kid named Elian Gonzalez wash up the shore. Clinton, when he was wanting to deport him, which he actually did, Republicans came out of the woodwork and said, people coming to this country have the right to live the American dream. The problem grows. Under Obama in 2015, he wanted immigration reform. Republicans opposed it for no other reason than they didn't want him to get credit for it.
Tell you what, we're just a minute before the break. So, Mark, is there culpability on both sides of the aisle on this?
Yeah, there absolutely is. And I give Reagan a pass on this. I mean, he's the first person I ever voted for. I'm a Reagan fan. But everybody thought that it was worth a try to amnesty the illegal immigrants who were already here in exchange for promises of enforcement. The problem is the promises were hollow. They were not kept. And that's why any deal like that, including the one Obama pushed or the one George W. Bush pushed, don't go anywhere because we know that the politicians are not telling the truth.
Thank you, Jeff, so much for the call here. And we're up against a break. And friends, our number here, as we continue to take your calls, if you're on hold, just stay there. We'll get to you. Our phone number to Crosstalk is 800-733-9829. That's 800-733-9829. Mark Krikorian is our guest today, Executive Director of the Center for Immigration Studies. We'll take more of your calls following the break as you listen to Crosstalk on the VCY American Network.
For the Worldview Report, I'm Brandon House. Our website's worldviewtube.com. Recently, perhaps you heard the headline, Mike Huckabee, the U.S. ambassador to Israel, put out a letter stating that he is going to reciprocate with restrictions on visas for Jews coming to America if the harassment of evangelicals by the visa department in Israel doesn't end. What? This seems very odd. So we asked our reporter on the ground in Israel this week, Aaron, about it. And he said, oh, yes, this has been a problem going on for years. There are many Orthodox inside our interior ministry that are specifically targeting evangelicals and even Messianic Jews that want to come and live permanently in Israel. You see, folks, what this is a group, a small group, that do indeed go very hard after Christians. So we need to pray for them. But also, don't let this news story be used by people for anti-Semitism. Explain it's a specific group of people, not all Jews.
Again, the website for our guest today, CIS.org. You'll find regular writings columns there. Sign up, get their emails as well, CIS.org. Let's get right back to the phone lines. Holding the longest out of Phoenix, Arizona. And Nina, you're on the air. Or Nina?
Either way. My thought is, are these sanctuary cities getting extra funds from maybe cartels or George Soros types to continue? I don't see where their real benefit of being a sanctuary city is unless they're, people are paying politicians to initiate them. Is that?
Very good question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't actually think so, because the politicians who are doing this, they believe it. This is an ideological thing for them. They do not think that illegal immigrants should be made to go home. They think that if you want to move here, you have a right to come to the United States, whether the American people like it or not. And that's reflected in their sanctuary city policy. So in a sense, my point here is they're doing it for free. Nobody has to pay them. George Soros doesn't have to give them any money. They believe in this, and they're doing it out of principle, which is bad, but at least it would be easier if they were getting paid, because then we could expose that. That's not why they're doing it.
Well, thank you, Nina.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye. Then let's go to Florida. Bo has been holding the longest. Bo, you're on the air.
Hey, I got a question. I watch a lot of these sting operations, and they're not African-American, white. They're illegal aliens. And Venezuela, Guatemala, Mexico, 65% of pedophilia, child predators are coming into the United States. And I just want to know your thoughts, because I know in different countries they'll have an act on, like, say if you want to come into our country, like, let's get these legal aliens setting up child predators, called a system Alien versus Predator, and get this country cleaned up. 65% of pedophilias are Guatemala's, Venezuela's, Mexico's, and they're going for 13-year-old boys, 13-year-old girls. It's very demonic. But if you watch these sting operations, they're all Spanish.
Okay. Any comment on that, Mark?
Well, I mean, there's illegal aliens of all kinds, believe me. In fact, they just arrested, ICE just sent a thing about an English illegal alien who came over on a visa, committed crimes. They got rid of him. So illegal immigrants are coming from everywhere. There's a lot of child sex offenders. There's no question. Some of that is because they're real predators. In other cases, they're coming from places where they probably think it's just normal for the 14-year-old girls to be, sexually active. And so it doesn't mean, they still need to be punished for it, absolutely, and removed from the country. But my point is it's sort of two kinds. Some are child predators. Some are just people who think it's perfectly normal because they're coming from profoundly backward pre-modern countries.
Wow. Thank you for the call. The number 800-733-9829. And is it Lou in Tomah, Wisconsin?
My question, they had all that big outbreaks of diseases, and it started in Texas and went to Idaho, and, of course, it's going to spread because people move. But you got 16 million people coming from these third world countries that are not vaccinated. Obviously, hello, why wouldn't you have an outbreak from people coming in with measles and stuff from a different country? You know what I mean? I think that was a start of where these, they're having a problem with measles down in Texas and out in Oregon and all that.
Okay.
Of course, it started in Texas, but probably spread, because people...
Tell you what, we're going to have our guest comment on the health aspect. What about that, Mark? We saw, for instance, even with, during the time of COVID, that, people were just really flying across the country here, that we were transporting those here illegally. What about this issue of health?
Yeah, there's no question that, especially people coming from third world countries, where not just that the health system isn't as involved, but they're not, they don't have the same vaccination schedules and everything, child vaccinations, all that, and they're coming from places where tropical diseases that don't exist here are widespread. So it's definitely a problem, and it's something we can deal with, but the first thing we need to do is stop illegal immigration and reduce legal immigration, so at least those smaller, we shrink the size of the problem, and then we address it through, aggressive health checks.
Thank you for the call. We're going to squeeze one last call in from Neelsville. We have Tony calling. Tony, you're on the air.
Hi, Jim. I know you're just about out of time, so I'll make this quick. But I think the whole topic and point today is because they need votes. That's what it's all about. The Democrats cannot win elections without giving these people all these goodies for an exchange for a vote.
Okay. What about this illegal voting, Mark?
Yeah, I don't think the illegal voting is a problem, but it's not as big a problem as I think people think. The issue, the way immigration affects the political system especially, is that it changes the distribution of congressional seats, because the Census Bureau counts everybody, warm bodies, even illegal immigrants. And so you have states like California and, frankly, Texas with more congressional seats than they would have if there weren't for illegal immigration. And that means other states have fewer. The ones that have fewer illegal immigrants lose out on congressional representation, and the same thing is true within the state legislature. So it's a real problem, even if not a single illegal immigrant ends up voting, even though some of them do, but not that many, honestly.
Yeah, thank you for the call here, Tony. And that does bring up an issue. I mean, we will be having, the next congressional census would be taking place at 2030. And so what happens between now and then is critically important, Mark.
Absolutely it is. And in fact, there was just on Twitter, they distributed this recording of a congresswoman from New York City who said she needed migrants, she didn't say illegal aliens, she said migrants, to move to her district before the census count so that she would be able to keep her seat, basically. I mean, it's just saying that quiet part out loud, but it's a real issue.
Wow. Mark Krikorian with us, Center for Immigration Studies, our website, CIS.org. And Mark, thanks for carving out the hour and helping to further educate our listeners.
Happy to do it anytime.
And friends, again, we encourage you to check out the site to stay informed of what's happening on immigration issues at CIS.org. Well, friends, take time to thank your local station for picking up Crosstalk and let them know how much you appreciate the broadcast. Get behind, support them. Many are non-commercial stations, and your support of that station is so very much appreciated to keep this program operating in your community. God bless you, friends. Thanks for joining us today on Crosstalk.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Tape Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.